All right, y'all, what's going on? It's Combo Breaker 99 back with another video. All right, y'all, shout out to Marcus Bell. He had sent me this article a few days ago. I wanted to touch on it a few days ago, but I was kind of busy. So here we go, y'all. Let's talk about this one here. I know right now, everybody's been talking about Dakota Ditcheva for good reason. She is a rising star in WMMA, and she is looking like one of the best fighters right now. And of course, I'm intrigued with it. I am interested in to see what she's able to do. Going back and watching some of her fights, she's exciting. She likes to fight. She's got good work ethic. So as much as people think I hate on Dakota, I'm just being real about, her situation. But when it comes down to watching her as a fighter, I do think she's exciting. And I do like playing matchmaker with her as well, seeing how she matches up with the fighters in the UFC. But unfortunately, right now, I don't think we'll see her in the UFC for another year or two, maybe even 3. We just don't know, because with the contract she has at the PFL, it just proves that she's still on lock with them. And they, according to Dakota, they still have some things to work on. They still have some plans. Like, is she happy with them? I'm sure she is financially. But when it comes to challenges, I just don't think they have it for her right now. That's my thoughts on that. But as far as her seeing her in the UFC, yeah, like I said, I don't think we'll see her in there for, like I said, another year or so. And after reading this here, definitely shows you that the PFL, they're not giving her up right now. No, sir, they ain't giving her up right now, because according to Dakota, she heard a rumor. According to Dakota, she heard a rumor that the UFC had already made an offer. They actually made a swap offer for Dakota, and the PFL turned it down. So this is what she said. This is what she said. I heard a rumor that it's already. So this is what she said. I heard a rumor that has already been asked. This is speaking of the UFC's trade offer, and it was declined. It wasn't 100% set, but I did hear it floating around that the UFC did ask for a swap. All right. So sounds like the UFC, because when I first heard about this, I thought the UFC was probably going to make like an offer, like a financial offer, maybe to buy her out of her contract, or, give them a large amount of money and say, this is what you get if we get Dakota. But they were actually going to make a swap. Who for? I don't know, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. And then she went on to say, and she kept this part short on why the trade probably fell apart. She said, look, I mean, would PFL want to let me go? I mean, that's the best question to ask right now at this point. Would the PFL really want to let her go, no matter the offer from the UFC? I mean, I agree with her 100% on that. The question right now is no, they wouldn't want to let her go for good reason. And of course, look, this is no knock to any of the fighters in the flyweight division, because they got some of the best fighters. And I think they have several fighters that could still beat Dakota. Like, I don't think Dakota will run through everybody in the flyweight division. I still think they're more proven, experienced fighters. Valentina's still a legend. She still has a lot of skills and still has some more years to go. Alexa's still a tough fight for anybody. Manon is one of the best right now. She's a good, well-rounded fighter, and she's on her way to fight for the belt, right? But when it comes down to star power, and that's what I'm always talking about. Look, I understand. Look, there's stars, and then there's great fighters. Like, there's a lot of great fighters that don't have star power, right? But right now, just being honest here, this is no knock to anybody in the top 15. I don't think there's anybody in the UFC flyweight division that's worth trading for what the PFL has right now. I definitely understand why they're holding on to her, because they've been helping build her up from the ground up right now. Dakota, that is, and Dakota has a lot of potential to be a star versus some of the girls that are already here in the UFC. A lot of these girls, some of these fighters are already kind of proven and set in their ways, and they already have set fan bases, right? They're not really going to grow out of what they have, unfortunately, right? Some of them can, but as far as how they promote themselves, that's what it is. But when you have a young fighter like Dakota, who hasn't been signed to the UFC yet, and people still kind of find her to be like a mystery, like, how good is she? Like, what is she capable of? Like, why is this girl hit so hard? You know what I mean? Like, this girl's so tall and big. Like, where does this power come from? There's still a lot of questions about Dakota. That's what makes her exciting. Like, whenever you already signed into the UFC, it's like, boom, that's it. You're at the mountaintop. She's in there. Now we just want to see her fight for the belt. But when you have somebody like Dakota, who's 14-0, just about stopped everybody, there's still questions like, how does she match up against Valentina? How does she match up against some of these other fighters? So there's still that mystique about her. And the PFL, they're not going to let that go, because they can let that grow right now. So the PFL knows they have lightning in the bottle right here. So I understand why they're holding on to her, and the UFC rejecting everything else because, again, I don't think they have anybody else star-wise that could compete with what they have in Dakota right now. Alexa Grasso? No, like Alexa Grasso has her fan base, but I believe where she's set in the UFC knows how to market that. UFC knows you. That's all you got to say. You know what I mean? She's one of the many Mexican fighters that help bring in that big fan base. And that's how she's built her promotion, by being tied to the UFC. You know, when you think the UFC, you think all these other fighters, but you also think the Mexican fan base. So that's her home. You know, they know how to market that. PFL, I don't know if they know how to market that much. You know, people really wouldn't leave or gravitate to the PFL just off of one name like Alexa Grasso. Maybe her fans will, but I don't think that going to the PFL, that's going to bring in like more people. You know, I don't think she really attracts that type of star power. You know what I mean? Aaron Blanchfield, you know, it's no knock to Aaron Blanchfield. You know, Aaron's great fighter. You know, she's proven. But when it comes down to it, you know, she doesn't really have this big fan base. You know, she doesn't have people you know, coming all around the US, you know, to come see her fights. Let's be honest. You know, she's the same age as like Dakota is, but again, Dakota has more of a country behind her. So again, the PFL, they would stand to lose a lot if they gave her to the UFC right now. You know, so even Aaron, you know, she's a fighter that doesn't really have like a huge fan base. Rose in the flyweight division, you know, Rose, she's always been kind of up and down, and you know, she's kind of at the end of her career, even though she is young. You know, Rose, you know, she's doesn't really hold that name anymore. You know, she's kind of on her way out too, you know, so I don't think she's a fighter that would just go over to the PFL. I think she wants to finish her career in the UFC. Then you got fighters like Manon. I think Manon, again, is a good fighter, but where she stands, you know, I believe she can really build her legacy now and finish it off in the UFC because, you know, at her age, I feel like she's already at the top of where she's going to reach. You know what I mean? Like, she's here against the best fighters. There's more opportunities here. You know, going over to the PFL, again, I don't think they would really know how to market like a French fighter like her. You know, I think where she stands in the UFC, she's better off there. Like, I don't think they could handle that or help somebody that grow that's already more mature like her. Macy Barber, she'd probably be like the only one I could see they could make a swap for. Because, you know, with Macy Barber kind of being in and out right now, not as active and having that type of personality, I think she's like the only one. Maybe her and Natalia Silva. Like Natalia Silva, you could probably swap her over, I think. But again, you know, some of these fighters, I believe they work well with the UFC because that's the only way they're going to be seen. Because again, I don't think a lot of the casual fans will just gravitate for one fighter. You know what I mean? See, all the other fighters, they already kind of been just grandfathered into the PFL to tune in and just follow Dakota's career. And that's the big thing. Like, that's why the UFC wants her, because where Dakota goes, her fan base is going to go. That's how big I believe her fan base is, and they're growing. You know, again, having a country behind her like that, similar to like Molly McCann and Patty, uh, they would they would stand to lose a lot. The PFL would, you know. So I can definitely see, yeah, like why they're keeping her and why they wouldn't want to let her go right now. Because again, whether or not they have any fights that make sense, they can still make a lot of money with her. But there'll come a point where she'll grow out of the PFL and grow out of, you know, the competition that there's throwing her way, and then she'll just have to make her way over. But as of right now, they can get another good 2 years out of her. That's why she said there's still a lot going on too. She said, "Look, I feel like we got so much to do. I mean, we're heading into Dubai in January. I really want to do a Manchester card, and I think PFL are the people to bring it to Manchester." See, so we're not done. We're not done. That's what she said, right? So yeah, with that in mind, you know, again, the PFL, they'll know how to market her to Manchester. You know, she has this huge crowd over there now, so it doesn't matter who she's going to be fighting. You know, they'll know how to market her and build her up as a star. So I believe that there's a point where she's still comfortable. You know, she still feels comfortable with them too, you know, because she already knows what to expect from them. You know, sometimes with the UFC, you know, they might put you on these other cards, you know, at a lower, you know, you used to being spoiled. So even with Dakota, I feel like, you know, with the level she's been fighting at, like a main event, co-main event, just dropping down like a opening of a UFC fight night card or even like opening of a pay-per-view card, it's going to be kind of a step down for her, or just being seen as the third or fourth ranked level fighter, against all these other great fighters in the UFC. It's going to be kind of a step down for her, which I'm sure she'll feel comfortable with once she's grown out of the PFL. But for right now, at her age, they stand to make a lot of money together. So I believe she wants to kind of stick it out there too as well, to get as much money as she can, which there's no problem with that. I don't think there's any problem with that. But yeah, just so y'all know, the UFC, they don't plan on letting her go right now, and I can understand why. Again, I don't really think there's anybody in the flyweight roster that would match her as far as star power. I'm not even going to talk about the champion when it comes to Valentina Shevchenko. Like, why would Valentina go over there? Why would the UFC even want to swap her at this point? Valentina's on her way out, and she's a fighter that would probably want to move up to 135 before she moves to some other organization that doesn't have competition for her to finish out on a high note. See, fighters like her and Manon at their age, they stand to make more money in the UFC and legacy wise staying here in the UFC versus going over to somewhere like PFL. The only fighter that I believe could have some success would be somebody like Macy Barber, because she's a personality, and Natalia Silva because she has a good look about her, and exciting, explosive style. And her style is probably almost as exciting as Dakota. Almost. I say almost because she just doesn't have that finishing rate like Dakota. But other than that, there's really nobody else. There's nobody else that would bring that star power. Even them, that's just me trying to reach. That's just me trying to reach right there. So, yeah, as a collective, the flyweight division is great as far as talent. But when it comes to star power and with what PFL is marketing, as far as her towards Manchester and what they're doing, if they let her go now, they're gone. If they let her go now, they're gone. Because, with Tyler losing the way she did, Liz Carmouche on her way out, they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody when it comes to flyweight. So they need Dakota right now. And they're going to try to find a super fight for her. And they can market it as a super fight as long as they got her as a name. So, yeah, I definitely see why they didn't want to make the trade. There's nobody there for them to trade over here, So that's just how I see it when it comes to star power, guys. What do y'all think? Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.